Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jeff. So hey, what is the condo market really doing? All right guys, so here's the deal. You may have seen an article that came out this last Friday. It was in the Seattle Times. Mike Rosenberg, who is a very, very good reporter, had published the article. I was fortunate to work with him. One thing I've done many times over the years, providing some data, some thoughts, some insight into what's going on in the condo market. This particular article, though, was in reference to, maybe a bit of a condo slowdown or a reprieve from this hot condo market. Now, one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to step on the Seattle Times data or give you a perception that what I'm doing is much better than what they're doing or any of that. What I do want to share with you, though, is that data can be looked at differently. Okay, so one, in February we had a massive snowstorm in Seattle. Okay, this was like 2 weeks, and that's going to disrupt the data. For instance, if you go under contract on February 15th, typically a 30-day closing timeline might be then March 15th, which would be a sale in March, which would have influenced the numbers in the month of March. But more importantly than that, what's more important and what I really want to drive home for you guys is if you're trying to figure out the trajectory of the condo market, you need to look in the neighborhoods that you're interested in. Real estate is hyper-local, okay? All right, so what I mean about hyper-local is that real estate and the stats, the trajectory, the momentum in a particular market is very defined by these little micro communities, okay? So as an example, downtown will trade differently than Queen Anne, which will trade differently than downtown Bellevue, which will be different than Wallingford. And so one thing that I want to show you guys, just give you a couple real-time examples and how this data might look different if you look at a different subset. I'm going to show you three different indicators, three different ways to look at the market that would give you a different perspective on what the condo market's doing if you just looked in downtown. So that's defined by what's called MLS Area 701, okay? So let's get started. What we're gonna look at is we're gonna look at the median sales data, okay? So the median sales price. So we're gonna look at the days on market, and then we're gonna look at the month supply of inventory. So when you guys look at the median sale price, what's interesting to me is that if you go back to March of 2014, the median sales price, $425,750, okay? Now let's fast forward to March of 18. March of 18, it was $650,000, the median sale price. So half the sales are over that number, half of them are under. And then bringing it up to speed from March of last year to March of this year, so year over year, the median sales price last month was $680,000. Okay, so what that reflects, even though the Times article showed that overall countywide Seattle condo prices were down, that in this case downtown Seattle condo prices are up 4.6%. So it's why it's really critical that we don't just look at a big subset of data, that we have to get kind of to the micro points of data to really understand what a market's doing. Okay, so we took a look at the median sales price. Let's look at the days on market, okay? I have a chart that I'm gonna show you guys. So when you look at the days on market, you can see in March of 2018, the average days on market for a condo to sell was 22, okay? So it comes on the market, it took 22 days on average to sell. Now, if you fast forward to March of 19, it's 39 days. So you can see some deterioration in that number. We went from 22 days on market to 39 days on market. Okay, so that's another indicator that we want to look at. So that would be regression or longer market times, which could indicate that the market was softer because you had more inventory. But realistically, for a unit to sell under even 90 days, which would be 3 months of inventory, is a really good market. Like that's unheard of. You're saying that when your unit goes on, within 39 days of it going on average, it's sold. I mean, that's a very, very fluid market. And another indicator that I watch every month to kind of see the general trajectory of the Seattle market. Okay, so the last one is months supply of inventory. Okay, now this one looks a little different. Okay, we went from 1.5 months to, I believe, about 3.5 months. Okay, which would be move. Now, one would have to question, well, why did we go from basically a month and a half of inventory to 3.5 months of inventory? Well, there's a number of different reasons why, okay? But one reason in particular is that we've added a lot of new construction inventory, okay? So if you consider the fact that there's 184 units on the market in downtown Seattle right now, a number of those units would have been absorbed, okay, or would have been purchased if that buyer didn't go and buy something that was new construction. So as an example, let's say a buyer buys at First Light or Spire or Emerald or Gridiron as an example, okay? When they buy a unit there, that's one less unit from a resale perspective that would have traded. So now that we've jumped almost 2 months in inventory, from my perspective, it's pretty indicative of the fact that we've added a lot of new residential units to the market, and so we're slower to absorb the resale inventory. Okay, so it's just another number that I look at. Now, is this a perfect science? No. What I want you to understand, okay, is that when you see an article, when you see someone publish something about the general direction of a market, you still have to look at a really kind of refined part of that market to understand what the data really reflects, okay? So let's talk about 3 reasons why I believe the general trajectory of the market is still heading up, okay? I prepared just a few numbers for you guys, wanted to share a couple things with you. I'm gonna talk about population, I'm gonna talk about income, and then we'll talk about just general employment, okay? So population. So since 2010, the downtown population has grown by 38%. This is a monster number. Okay. Now, Seattle population as a whole from 2010 to 2017, there's estimates that we've grown over 21%. But maybe more important in all of that is that there are some projections that are saying that we're going to go from 1.7 million residents to 5.6 million residents by 2040. So when you think about the general direction of a market, if you have an increase in population and you continue to have stable or even wage increases, you're going to get pricing increases, and you're going to get good housing growth. Wage expansion, job expansion, housing growth, period. Okay? So number 2, let's talk about income. This one's interesting. So one specific category of income from 2010 to 2016, the number of people making $200,000 or more in the city of Seattle grew by 138%. So when you look at a city like Seattle, we have lots of tech, lots of healthcare, biotech, the list goes on, right? But we have highly educated workforce that's moving into the city, relocating to the city. Very bright, young, youthful talent moving to Seattle that's making an impact on all of these corporations in town, which I'll talk about next, and kind of where our city's headed, okay? If the best and the brightest are moving to your town, that's generally a really good sign. So let's move on to jobs, our employers. By my last count, we had 31 Fortune 500 companies in the city of Seattle. Let me just name you a few just so you can understand. These are all employers that are in downtown Seattle, walking distance of our condo market. Fred Hutch, Capital One, Colin Weber, WeWork, Google, Microsoft, Children's Hospital, Salesforce, Path, Facebook, a massive presence of Facebook engineers, UW Medical, the Allen Institute, Juno Therapeutics, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Nordstrom, Starbucks, the Omni Group, the list goes on, guys. I know that we have a small office of Pinterest engineers that have been looking for space in Seattle. So in a nutshell, when you look at those employers and you see what those employers are paying, and all of those employers, of course, are picking off the same engineers from, for instance, the University of Washington, you're bound to have a market that continues to go up. The 3 points that I made were obviously the population growth and where we're headed in terms of population, wage and wage expansion, which I told you is the second indicator of housing growth, and then the employment, okay, and the type of employer here in Seattle that's helping to grow our city and move our city along. So anyway, guys, I hope this was helpful. I wanted to give you an update. I hope that you saw that article in the Times. You know, it was nice to be able to contribute and share some data with those guys. I do think it's a market where, because we've added some inventory as a buyer, you can really kind of take advantage of a buying opportunity and getting, you know, the right deal for you. I'd say for anyone considering the Seattle condo market, you know, over the next 5 to 10 years, for me, it's really simple. I would say do it. Now, can things change? Will we see recession? You know, is the election next year? Of course. Okay, all the above. But if you look at this buying opportunity or investing in Seattle as a whole, I'd say the proof is in the pudding, right? There's a lot of really, really good data that's showing that we're going to continue to grow. Thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, hit the like button for me. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I would love to have you. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll talk to you guys soon.